Hey everybody, Mary Fran Bontempo here. And before we get started with today's show, I just wanted to let you know that my new book, From Broken to Brilliant, How to Live a Brilliantly Resilient Life, is available on Amazon. Super excited about this book, which provides a roadmap of how to live a brilliantly resilient life. You'll get advice not only from me, but from so many dozens of our podcast guests who were kind enough to share their tips on how to reset, rise, and reveal your own brilliance. So head on over to Amazon, get a copy of the book From Broken to Brilliant, and now let's get on with the show. Welcome to the Brilliantly Resilient podcast. What's your train wreck? Everyone has one. The question is, are you just visiting or are you going to live there? I'm Mary Fran Bontempo. Join me and let's learn how to come through those train wrecks, not broken, but brilliant. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Brilliantly Resilient podcast. I'm your host, Mary Fran Bontempo, and today we're talking about a subject that excites me and scares me, and I think every woman in the world probably feels the same way. I have as my guest Audrey Faust, who is an expert CFO and money mindset authority, and also author of the best-selling book, She Grows Rich. Can I just tell you how much I love that title? She Grows Rich details simple, achievable, step-by-step strategies to financial prosperity, creating confidence and empowerment around your personal finances. Audrey, thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Mary Fran. I'm so excited to be here with you and
I'm
in
so
your
happy to have you.
energy.
First of all, you're smiling and you're happy and you're talking about money. And I'm
Right?
like, oh my God. I
Money carries so much emotion with it,
Oh
right?
my gosh, doesn't it? And when you think about money, you think balance sheets, you think bank accounts, you think, facts and all. But I think, especially where women are concerned, there is a whole lot of emotional baggage that goes on with that. So tell me a little bit about your work and how that all factors into it. And thank you for writing She Grows Rich. And let's get into that.
So, what I do is I help women business owners understand the financial pieces of their business and deal with any money mindset, both of those things. So, mindset and strategy, the best combination. I have an accounting degree and an MBA, and then I'm also a certified neuro coach. So, I marry all
Oh,
of that together.
you've got it covered, girl. Holy cow.
Yes. And as you said, money is super emotional, super charging, and it comes into play whether you're talking about your personal finances, like I do in my book, or if you're talking about your business finances as you're growing a business. And so many women do have a lot of fear and misunderstanding and not knowing because, I'll say this over and over again, like, you get into business because you have a gift, right? And the money stuff just comes with it. And nobody taught you how to do it. Nobody had talked about it, most likely, in any way, shape, or form. And it comes with the business part, having a business. And you, a lot of women think they're expected to just know it. But that's where I
Mm.
come in. I come in to help women understand the financial pieces of their business, and a lot of times, what keeps them from being more successful in their business is the money mindset that's hidden there, that has been there with them since childhood.
I have a friend who used to call me profit averse.
That's great. You're not the only one. You're not the
I
only one, Mary
know.
friend, that's profit averse.
Profit averse. That's what she used to call me because I think you just hit on something that is, and thank you for naming it because you've hit on something that is so intrinsic to the mindset of women in business and in our personal finances too. I mean,
Yes.
let's not separate the two. But when you're an entrepreneur, and many women, um, even when they're transitioning necessarily, like they may have a corporate career and then they want to start their own business and all that. It's a whole different thing. And that mentality, and I want to touch on this too, plus the idea that a lot of women are givers. We're givers. So
Yes.
that becomes a problem because especially if you have a business that's kind of service oriented, a lot of times people expect you to give away the store.
Yes. Yes.
So how,
Or you think you're expected to give away the store.
yes.
That's usually more the case.
So okay, so let's talk about that. Is there a measure of guilt when charging people for things that are maybe socially beneficial, or like if you have a program? I'll give you an example. I do a lot of speaking with moms and things like that of
Yeah.
kids, parents who have children who are drug addicted because my son was a heroin addict. And because I have other things, I've never charged for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there are people who create programs and things like that along those lines, and they're expected to just give that away because it's a service and it's a helpful thing. So, how do you get around that? I just want to hear you talk.
So, um, I'm a firm believer that you need to invest in something to see results. Okay. You need to financially invest in it. And one time, somebody told me this example, and I love it and I use it all the time. You have tickets to, let's say, a local baseball game. They cost you like $15. You come home, you don't feel good, you had a long day, you're tired, you're like, I don't really feel like doing that or going there or whatever. You don't go. Now, take this same day, the same night, and you have $2,000 tickets to some event, some show, some, prestigious event that you paid $2,000 for these tickets. Like, you're going to go no matter what you feel like, right? So that's kind of the same thing, is investing in yourself. When it comes to like investing somebody that offers a service like a coach like myself, like, you yourself are going to get more out of it if you invest money in it versus giving it away for free or low ticket, because they're going to be more invested in the results. So I hope that makes sense.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So it's sort of like a reverse psychology thing here. Your potential clients will value and get more out of your service if you put
Yes,
a price on it that makes them see that there's going to be some value there. And we do mentally associate things that cost more as being better.
absolutely. Think of like a Louis Vuitton purse versus, a purse you get at, some
Every
lower
Walmart one
ticket.
I have in my closet,
Walmart, yeah.
all those
Versus a
Walmart.
Walmart, right? But they could be the same. They do that. They qualify as the same function, that you carry it around and they hold all your stuff. But one costs thousands of dollars and one costs $40 or $30. So,
So the
and
first
both do the
lesson
same
is
thing.
don't don't cheapen your worth by undercharging or underselling your value.
Yeah, 100%.
So how do you figure out what your value is in terms of that kind of thing? Because I know that that's always been I think it's a bugaboo for every woman who's ever sold something. I mean, even on Facebook Marketplace, you're like, oh, well, I only charge $10, At some point, at some point you have to go, wait a minute, just wait a minute. But how do you get to that place? Because it's really hard to overcome that.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things pricing is huge, and I work on that a lot with my clients. There's a couple of strategic things that you can do, right? One is you want to make sure that your profit of your business is at least what you can make in the marketplace, if you were working a full-time job.
Ah,
Not your revenue, your profit. Okay. So if you're not making a profit, you're essentially working for free, right?
Mhm.
So you would be financially beneficial to just go out and get a job because then you're actually making money. A lot of people look at the revenue and they don't look at the whole picture, right? They don't look at the assistant they have to hire, the marketing they have to do, the sales they have to do. All of that goes into your value of your service.
Right.
So, the other thing I like to say is if you're closing 100% of your clients that you are talking to do, your prices are too low.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. Wow. That is like, that just blew my mind because why? Okay, explain that to me because that makes sense in my head, but I want to hear your explanation.
So I like to be have a closing rate, and you should track this of between 50 and 80%, right? That's kind of the sweet spot. If you close every single person you talk to, like your prices are too low. You're leaving money on the table. That's the way I look at it. Now, if you're closing less than 50%, it may not necessarily be your pricing.
Hmm.
It may be the fact that you're not following up, or that maybe your client didn't understand what your offer was or what your service was, or you just need to package it differently or present it differently, right? So there's all kinds of things that if you're under the 50, but if you're over the 80, like you can easily raise your prices and do it until you're in the 80 mark, right? And
So is
then,
that, I've heard this concept before. Is that kind of like this velvet rope concept? Like you sort of, you put up the velvet rope and you admit the people that are going to value and follow through.
right.
Because a lot of those people, like you said, that if you're closing 100%, people go, well, if I do it, I do it. If I get it, I get it. I don't care one
Yeah.
way or the other. And is that how you
Yes.
really want your business to be thought of?
Exactly. And that kind of goes back to the first analogy that I said. Your prices need to be high enough that people are going to value your service and, what you're offering to make change.
Well, that's a concept. No wonder she used to call me profit averse. All right, well now that's all start now now that's all starting to make sense. Okay, so what is it about women? You talk a lot about the blocks that you see most often in women. So what are they? What causes us to do that and to devalue what we're offering?
Well, women by nature, because are usually the ones that are raising the children, we're givers, we're
Mhm.
nurturers. That's just in our DNA. Um, and that makes it harder for us a little bit in business sometimes to value ourselves. Um, the other thing I like to share is a little statistic too that a lot of women beat themselves up because they think, and it may or may not be true, that they're not good with money,
Huh.
or that it's because they were never taught. Because women could not even have a credit card, Mary Fran, until 1974.
No way.
Yes. So we weren't allowed to have money. We weren't
What?
allowed to have money. We
Oh
weren't
my God.
allowed to be hold the purses of the family, right? It was just, and so for instance, like nobody ever taught us anything about it. You weren't expected to know about it. So
Well,
now, we get to change that in future generations, and we get to educate our women, then in turn our girls, our children, how to really understand the financial pieces because, we get to be independent now.
you know, I think I'm going to need you to be my psychiatrist because my therapist, because I just had this vision when you talked about that in 1974 that women weren't even allowed to have credit cards. I remember my father, who was a big German guy,
Yeah.
sitting at the dining room table with the bills and things spread out around him at that time of the month when that came. And he was always so angry and so
Yeah.
frustrated and yelling. And like we, all of us kids would scurry away because it was bill paying time. So I think that I was scared of it too. I mean, I was scared of money because what in the world is going on that this
Hmm.
guy is so mad every month and we never in his mind, I mean, we never suffered for anything, but in his mind there was never enough to go around and we never had enough. So maybe a lot of this is also based in
Oh,
our childhood
100%.
experiences.
100%. And that's where the neuroscience comes in, the neuro coaching. So, um, we are a product of what we grew up in. Our subconscious is being formed when we're a child, before the age of 7. So if you witness that, Mary Fran, before the age of 7, you immediately connected money with like unhappiness and fear and grumpiness, right?
And yelling.
Which
There was
would
a lot of yelling.
and yelling, which would make you be adverse to money and profit. Like that's what was programmed in you.
It really,
Exactly.
it really was something that always made me nervous.
Yeah,
So,
makes sense.
facing and plus of course, here's another woman thing. I always thought, oh, I'm no good at math, which is ridiculous because I always
Hmm.
got great. I mean, I always did really well in math, but in my own mind, I guess that math was different than money math. I mean, like, do we separate money math and other kinds of math maybe in our heads? Like in terms of we women don't give ourselves the credit for things like managing grocery budgets and managing household expenses. All of that is math and numbers. But we
Yes.
separate that when it comes to our businesses. And
Yeah.
what the heck is that about? And how do we transfer the confidence that we have in running our homes and all that stuff to the other part of it?
That's a great question. I I feel like women instill confidence through education and learning. Like the
Right.
more you know and learn, the more confident you become in something. And when I work with women, one of the things I hear over and over again is when they come out of my one-on-one program, they're just like, oh my gosh, I feel so much more confident in understanding this part of my business now. And I feel like I can make decisions now based on the financial information in my business, which is ultimately that's my goal. That's my goal. My goal is to educate and take the fear out, take the judgment out, and just say, we're starting here, we're learning here, and nobody ever taught you this. You got into
Yeah.
business and, you know, you're just like, here, figure it out. So,
Well, and there is that expectation, but I think maybe women also have to, we also have to recognize, and I talk about this a lot in Brilliantly Resilient, about having transferable skills. Like if you're
yeah,
in the world, whether you're, married or and have kids or whether you're single, whatever, you're running your own finances in some way. Now, maybe you're not doing that well, which is another thing that you have to address. But the fact that you are allotting, money for groceries or rent or this or that or the other thing, you're already in that world. So I think there has to come an awareness from women internally that goes, wait a minute, I already do this in some
yeah,
capacity.
yes.
So I'm not a complete idiot. Like, like we kind of have to,
Women are very smart. Women are actually smarter than men, I think, in most
thank you.
cases. So,
I've always believed that, but it's always nice to hear. But But I think part of it is a matter of saying you're already doing this in some way. So let's get strategic about it. And that's the part that I want to touch on next with you. What are some basic strategies that women can use to just starting off? Like, what are some of the things that we should be thinking about in terms of our finances, business, personal, whatever, to get strategic about how we make and then manage our money?
I mean, the biggest thing I can say is be involved in both, right? Sometimes it cringes me when women tell me, well, my husband does all the money stuff. I don't, you know. Do you know? Here's another fun fact that may blow your mind. 80% of women are going to die single.
Whoa.
Yeah. So women typically live longer than men. So that is a statistic that at some point in your life, you are going to have to take over the financial things of your personal and or your business if you have a business. So you're going to have to learn it. So why put your head in the sand now and not learn it and make it be hard later? Or why not, take a partnership in learning it and understanding it and, you know, not leave it up to the man to take care of it. There's another saying that a man is not a financial plan, right? So, like, let's not make that happen.
I love that. A man is not a financial plan. I'm writing that one down. Um, so to that end, where do we start to get involved? I mean, what are we looking at? We talked a little bit about pricing. We talked about, the mental part of that. So when you're either, let's say you already have a business and your numbers aren't working, where do you start to say, all right, this is phase one of what I need to get a grip on?
Okay. Yeah. So when I work with my clients one-on-one, we create what's called a financial blueprint.
Okay.
And I actually talk about a personal financial blueprint in my book. But we also create a business financial blueprint. And I hate the word budget. A lot of people hate the word budget, so I
I don't
don't
like it.
call it a budget.
Yeah, I don't like it.
And that's why I call it a blueprint, but it's different than a budget. It is. Because it takes all things into factor. And you get to decide where your money goes. Okay. And then where you want to grow. So when we create this blueprint, we take an average of, like, whether it's the last 6 months or the last year, their expenses, and put it all down, and their income, and put it all down on this one sheet of paper. And then we factor in taxes, we factor in what they are paying themselves now. Um, and then we have the goal column. Okay. So the goal column is where they want to get to. So a lot of times women will come to me, they're not paying themselves what they're worth. They're not profitable. They're not paying themselves enough. Um, and it's a common theme. So, okay, then the goal is, okay, how much do you want to make? Boom, we put that number in first, right? And then we kind of reverse engineer the rest. So they know how much revenue they need to bring in, what team they need to support them, and what that all needs to look like for them to make the money that they deserve and they get to make to support their family and support their own wealth and grow that in their personal side.
So I love this idea of reverse engineering things because, when, like you said at the very beginning of our conversation, when you start a business, you have a gift or there's something that you want to share.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
tend to focus on that. And I have heard many times the expression, get it out there, done is better than perfect,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And there's a place for that,
Yes.
but
100%.
not if you're trying to make money at this. So before, if somebody's thinking of launching a business, is there a different starting point, or do we start at exactly the same place with projected expenses, projected things like that, and then say, how much money do I want to make at this? Is there a difference between starting and digging yourself out of the hole once you're in there? Like, how can you
Yeah.
avoid that maybe?
Well, I mean, as you know, I'm sure starting a business, it takes a little bit of time. And
Mhm.
some business owners think that they're going to start the business 6 months, they're going to be making, buku
Right,
bucks. So it takes time. And you
right.
can work with a lot of coaches and invest all this money. in coaches and things, ultimately it just takes time. It takes time to build the business, to build the reputation, to have people know that you're there and
Mhm.
remember you, like all the things. So like, I mean, there's kind of two trains of thought. I'm thinking, yes, it's great to have a goal, right? The goal column.
Right,
Are you going to get there overnight? Maybe not necessarily,
right.
right? But it's great to say, okay, this is where I want to grow in the next year, 2 years. Like, and how am I going to do it? Um, the one thing I can say if you're just starting out that I would preach and preach is make sure you're separating your personal and your business expenses. So many people just commingle that stuff, and it just makes for a nightmare when it comes to tax time. And it's also, if you have an LLC and you're commingling, you're actually nullifying that LLC. So the whole reason you went out and got an LLC is to protect yourself legally. If you're commingling that stuff, like you've just nullified it. So get a separate checking account, get a business credit card, start building your business credit with a business credit card. Those two things, keep it strictly for business, and then you're going to get and be able to see the everything you need to see in starting and growing your business without all this mess of commingling it in your personal finance stuff.
I think that's really huge and it's great advice because at the end of that whole point, what I'm hearing from you is you have to take yourself seriously. If you're going to do
Yeah,
this, take it seriously and treat it from the get-go as a business entity, as something separate. So, that again, I think mentally, back to your idea of mindset thing, that also helps you see yourself in a more professional light.
yeah,
When you're kind of just throwing everything that you have into the pot, it's very hard at the end of the day, and you do have to have that persona. You have to have that business professional mindset if it's going to be a success, no matter how, you know, Etsy's coming into my mind, like, somebody who knits
yeah,
things. But that's a business. Like we
yeah.
don't we don't always qualify in our own minds things as a business. And if you're not doing that and it's your business, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah. I want to share a story about Shayna, a client I worked with. So Shayna was a entertainer, a singer, and I met Shayna. She had her business for 10 years, um, never had a profit in the 10 years. And when I met her, she was like, "Well, singers aren't really supposed to have a profit."
Oh,
And I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like let's dig into that a little bit more, right? So, um after we worked together, she got her first profitable year. I was so excited. So
wow, that's
that was so
amazing.
exciting. But there are two things about not having a profit. One, like she thought she was a singer. She was just having fun, right? And she had the luxury of her husband that was very supportive and able to financially support the family. But I was like, you have a business. It's not just an entertainment thing. You're not just going out and singing for fun. It's a business. So once she started shifting that mindset and looking at it as a business, she started looking at everything so much differently. And her singing gigs, as she calls them, um, I'm like, when you say yes to a gig, I want you to look at it first and see if it makes sense, if it's going to be profitable, right? Before you say yes. So she started looking at that differently. There was one gig that she has that she goes to Europe and sings, and she's like, this one's never going to be profitable, but she said, this is how I get all my other gigs. And I'm
Right.
like, okay, so that's more marketing. We'll kind of stick that in the marketing bucket and just say, as long as you break even, that's good. And then the rest of them, I want them to be profitable. And I want you to look at them and make sure they're profitable before you say yes. So that just like shifted her mindset 100%. And she started looking at her business as a business, right? And the other thing, if you don't make a profit, in 3 years, the IRS can classify your business as a hobby. Now, I think her husband used to give her money to dump into her business, so it did actually show a profit on the IRS, but like, but it did, so she avoided that, but it wasn't money that she brought in from her business. But anyway, if you don't show a profit in 3 years in your business, 3 consecutive years, the IRS can call it a hobby. What
Which
happens?
eliminates a lot of
All the
stuff.
expenses. Yes.
Mm.
So
Ooh.
if they classify it as a hobby, that means you have to pay tax on the income, but you get no deductions. You get no
Wow.
expenses. So that's a problem, right? Because now you're not just, you didn't make a profit. Now you got to pay taxes on just the income and you get no deductions. So that's not
Wow.
something you want to do.
So, even to people who are kind of starting out with like these kind of home-based things, that's a decision that you have to make right at the
Hmm.
very beginning of this. Is this going to be a
Yes.
business or is this going to be a hobby? Because there are
Right.
very, very different ways financially, and you're going to put money into both. Like
Exactly.
you're going to expend your money regardless into both of those enterprises, whether it's a hobby or whether it's a business. So I think maybe at first you make that decision and then you proceed accordingly. But even with a hobby, you really should be keeping track of what you're spending on it. And to your point about I take free gigs every once in a while because there is that idea of, okay, this could quite
Of
potentially
course.
put me in front of people who could.
Marketing.
So,
Yeah.
but to that point, there are categories where those kinds of things can fit, and marketing would be one of them.
Hmm.
So, there is a weighing of things, but at the end of the day, there should be some either return or potential return when you're putting your money
Yes.
into it. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
Okay. Well, this has been a really fascinating conversation. And I kind of feel like Mama Bear just smacked me on the side of the head, which I desperately needed. So thank you for that. I first of all, is there anything that you can leave us with, some nugget for women and finances, like some piece of get your head around this, girl, somehow, and let's make this strategic. So, and then I want you to tell everybody where they can learn more about you and get the book.
Thank you. Um, yeah, just my biggest thing is don't be afraid to learn more about finances. Even if you're like, ugh, that stuff makes
Gives
me
me
want
a
to
headache
puke,
and
right?
makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Yeah, I've been there.
Right. Yeah, like if you're going to be a business owner, it's your responsibility to understand that piece of your business. You're signing the tax return. And if you get audited, you're the one responsible for the information on that tax return, not your CPA. Not if you have a bookkeeper and they're doing the bookkeeping, not your bookkeeper, it's you. So you are the primary person that's going to have to answer the IRS. So you better be able to understand what it is and how it works. And that's at a minimum. But really, if you want to grow a business that's profitable, like that's the key to doing it is understanding the financial pieces of it and what's working and what's not working and being able to make decisions on the financial pieces of your
and
business.
and make some hard decisions too, because if things
Yeah,
are not
sometimes.
working, you can love doing something, but if it's not working and it's not making sense financially, then it may be time to take another look at the whole thing or those certain pieces that are just not doing what you
Exactly.
want them to do. I mean, again, all of it is relative in terms, I'm sure, of how much time you expend. If you something feeds you and you can recognize, okay, I'm not getting a profit out of this, that's one thing, but then we're not talking business here. We're not talking a
Right.
business.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. Now, where can we learn more about you and find out more about you and get your book? She Grows Rich.
My
I just love
She
that
grows rich.
title.
Thank you. She Grows Rich is available on Amazon. I think it's also available on Barnes and Noble. Um, but yeah, it was the number one bestseller on Amazon when it launched. And you can find me, audreyfaustconsulting.com is my website. I also have a free gift for all of your viewers, the 12 secrets from an expert CFO. And it's a great little PDF that'll help you start to understand the financial pieces of your business. And there's a money mindset training that's included in that as well. So be sure to download that and just get started in really understanding the financial pieces of your business, what it takes to grow and create a profitable business.
Oh, I love it. And I will include all of those links in show notes and in our Brilliance bit where you will see Audrey when this episode airs. And if you need a little more inspiration, head on over to brilliantlyresilient.net. And if you are not already getting our Brilliance bit, make sure you sign up for that little pop-up that'll show up there. Audrey, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been enlightening and a delightful conversation. And the fact that I can say that when it was about money is truly enlightening and wonderful. So thank you for that. And everybody else, we will see you next time on the next episode of the Brilliantly Resilient podcast. Bye.
Thanks, Mary Fran. It's been great.
You are welcome. Thanks for tuning in to the Brilliantly Resilient podcast. Join our Facebook group and follow us on YouTube to be inspired with tools to reset, rise, and reveal your brilliance.